I was 17 and she could have been 30 in ghost years at the time, for all I knew, had I known she was dead, which I didn't at the time. Are ghost years even a thing? I first encountered her on the bus on my way to school. I moved with my mum into the country and went to school in a small farm town in the Midwest. The bus would pick me up at 6:30 IE every day. I was the second one to get picked up on the route and the second to last to be dropped off, the girl I had the hots for being the only person to be picked up before me and dropped off after. The bus driver would greet everyone by name every morning, so I knew all 12 or so people on that bus, except her, as if they were family. Albeit one that I didn't really care for. I was quiet and got picked on a lot, so I kept to myself. I didn't really talk to anyone. It didn't help that the bane of my existence rode the same bus as me. We'll call him Dalton. He was the epitome of asshole. He knew that my dad left when I was little and that my mum was odd. He reminded me of it every day. I loved my mother, but when I was on the bus, I selfishly despised her for the life I had been given, even though I knew it wasn't really her fault. But anyway, I saw her on the bus all the time, but never saw her outside of the bus. I always figured I probably just never had a class with her or something. I'd had a crush on her since I could remember. She always had this pastel spring-leg dress that just felt warm looking at it. She had the deepest brown hair and fairest of skin that contrasted in much the same way the moon contrasts the night sky. I never saw her eyes because she was always looking down or out the window of the bus. I wanted to talk to her, hear her voice, learn her name. She had a mystique that consistently took my breath away, and the mystery of her silence added to my yearning, but I was always too chicken. This went on for quite some time. Then, I'd had a particularly bad day at school one day. Dalton had embarrassed me more than normal. I got in trouble for some shit some other kid did. Dalton embarrassed me again. I was mad and I knew I needed to calm down. I figured maybe I could use a bad day as motivation to talk to the girl on the bus. I thought that today was already bad enough. If I get rejected, I wouldn't have really lost anything. The end of school came and I made my way to the bus. People were already piling in, and when I got on, I saw her sitting by herself towards the middle end of the bus, alone. I felt my heart jump to my throat as I did my best to build up the courage I had earlier that day. I made my way to her and sat down in the seat next to her. She was staring at the ground and didn't look at me when I sat down. I was quiet for a second before I awkwardly said, "Hey, I've seen you on the bus since I can remember, but I never got your name." "I'm John," I remember thinking to myself. That was casual and normal sounding, wasn't it? Smooth, right? I was smooth, right? She didn't answer. I thought, maybe I'm not as smooth as I thought. Then I tried again to say something like, "I like your dress, it gives off a warm spring vibe." But my awkward ass let the shit fall out of my mouth. "I like your dress, it vibes a warm spring, John." Fuck you. It was at that moment I first thought I would be single indefinitely. But she slowly raised her face to look at me, and she had this shocked look on her face, and it was the first time I'd ever seen her eyes. Her eyes were a milk chocolate color that melted me into my own bowl of heart-fluttering chocolatiness. She still had the shocked/terrified look on her face, and I started to think maybe I said something horribly wrong, but what she said next caught me so off guard I didn't know what to say. "You can see me?" "What?" I said, "Of course I can see you. Why wouldn't I be able to? Kinda hard to miss you." She said, "Because no one ever notices me." "No one ever did." "No one ever did? What do you mean? How does someone like you not get noticed? You're really beautiful," I said. She looked at me like I had just committed a horrendous crime the moment I said that. Beautiful? What?" She sounded as if she'd never even knew of the word. Yeah, you're pretty." "John, you silver-tongued bastard." My eloquence was a panty dropper. Then she dropped the bombshell. "You know I'm dead right." In hindsight, her bluntness was sexy. "Wait, you're what?" I questioned, absolutely confused. Luna stood up in some kind of effort to protect her brother as the bully swung the knife. Meanwhile, the bus driver had seen what was happening and slammed on the brakes, causing everyone to fly towards the front of the bus. Luna fell forward onto the knife with blade piercing her at the base of her neck. Luna, she said she was dead before the ambulance got there. She'd been stuck on the bus ever since, never leaving, never being seen. She said she could only physically interact with things if she was angry or had some other kind of extremely powerful emotion like anger or fear. But she wasn't an angry person in life, so she never really interacted with anything during her time in her mobile prison. She had watched kids come and go on the bus for nearly 2 decades, and no one ever knew she was even there. Until now, anyway. During all of this, I was having the worst sort of emotional hurricane you could imagine. Here I was, listening to the girl of my dreams tell me her life story and me telling a little of my own. Her smile was toxic. Her eyes, her hair, her voice. And I couldn't even touch her. I never would be able to. She saw me several times try to reach for her hand while she told her story. The look of sadness on my face gave away my true feelings. She knew without me saying how I felt about her, and she knew it would never be. I like you, John, a lot. You're so sweet, and if I were still alive, I could see myself dating you maybe, but... She looked down, saddened. We locked eyes in silence for a while, before the moment was ruined by arsehole Dalton, who was sitting a couple seats away. Hey, shithead, looks you're going just as crazy as your crackhorn mother talking to yourself over there. Or are you sharing your mum's stash? I bet her pipe is shaped like a dick so she can get both her favorite things at once. Seriously, fuck Dalton. I heard Luna whisper to me, I'll fix this for you. She walked light through me and the seats right up to Dalton, who still couldn't see her. What happened next was the stuff of nightmares. And it was hot. Her image blinked for a second and suddenly Dalton could see her and he fell back in his seat, shaken. Luna's face stretched vertically, her eyes turning black and her skin turned brown and looked like it was tearing. The place where the knife entered her neck split more wide than any knife could have ever been. Her teeth, all of them, formed into long, narrow, black fangs that stuck out of her mouth that had opened wider than any normal human mouth should ever opened. She then let out the loudest, most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard that was laced with years of loneliness, despair, pain, fear, and anger. Dalton fainted out of fear. Me, being the closet horror movie buff I was, had shiver of ecstasy run down my spine. That was hot. Plus, Dalton had been silenced, so plus